Hello everyone, and welcome to my very first astrophotography processing tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about star trails, more specifically how to get colorful skies and subtle trails.
Now the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the images that we're going to be using. Here they are right here. There's 25 of them, and each of them were taken at about 3 minutes each. So here they are. As you can see, with 3 minutes, you're already getting streaking in those stars, just a little bit. And now the images are pretty clean because they had a long exposure time, but I also did shoot these at a higher ISO than usual. So 1600 was my ISO. My f-stop was 4.5, and again, my exposure was 3 minutes. And now you can see if I scroll through these images here, you can see that they're streaking across the sky. The stars are moving. That is because, believe it or not, the Earth is rotating. I don't know if you knew that. Some would even say that the Earth is round, but we're not going to get into controversial topics today, okay? Okay, so those are our images there. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw open Photoshop, and we are going to go File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. And we're going to go Browse. And as you can see here, we're going to take all of those files, all 25 of those files, and we're just going to load them up into one stack. Okay, so our files are loaded up here. As you can see, if you just pluck out that little eyeball on the side, that'll hide the image. And you can see that same movement of those stars with each of those files. So what a lot of people do when they're making star trails is they just select all of the layers that they have loaded up, and they just change the blending mode. This is the blending mode right here, and if you just change that to lighten, that kind of gives you that star trail effect there. But I didn't really want to do it like that because these trails are really, really kind of in your face, really bright. And I wanted something a little more subtle and something that would kind of bring out the colors a lot more in the sky. So we are going to do this step later, but we're going to do another step before that. So we're going to change the blending mode back, and then we're going to take all of these files here, and we are going to, with all of these files selected, we're going to turn them into a group. So that's what you do right here, this little folder icon. With all those files selected, you just click that icon and it merges them into a group. And we're going to call this group Originals. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a duplicate of this group. So we're going to take that group and we're going to drag it down to the new layer icon right there. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to duplicate that entire group. What we're going to do with this group is we are going to change it into what's called a smart object. So right click on the group and go Convert to Smart Object. Now, as you can see, Originals Copy is now, instead of a folder, it's a little icon of the image, and it's got the little Smart Object icon right in the bottom corner. So we're going to rename this from Originals Copy to Stacks, because that's what this is. It's all of the images stacked into one smart object. Although since it's a smart object, we should give it a smart name. So maybe Dr. Stacks. Okay, and so what we're going to do now is we're going to take that smart object and we're going to go to Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, Mean. And this is the result. So as you can see, it turned the stars into these really, really, really subtle, almost invisible streaks, and it brought out a lot more of the color in the sky. So what this did is this took all of the images that were in this smart object, and it measured out the average color of each and every single pixel between these images, and it made that average pixel the final result. So this is a great way to clean up any grain or noise that you have in your images, because grain and noise is not consistent across different images. So taking the average pixel color will get rid of, any noise that you have. And we had 25 images, so that's quite a bit of images. Although you can do this with hundreds of images, and the more you have, the better. But with that, it also kind of suppressed those stars and made them very, very much almost invisible. A little bit too invisible, I think. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this originals layer and we're going to bump it on top. And we're going to go back and select all of those images again. And we're going to change that blending mode from normal to lighten. So now, we've got that original effect there with the really bright and harsh stars. And then, of course, with the cars driving by, you have all this light over here. Now, we don't want that to be like that. We don't want to override the bottom image. So what we're going to do is we're going to merge that group. So that group is now merged, and we're going to change the blending mode of that new layer that we've created from our group to lighten. And we're going to grab the opacity. Opacity is how transparent the image is. We're going to drag it all the way down to 0, and we're going to just drag it up just a little bit. Just trying to find kind of that sweet spot where you bring some of those stars back just a little bit. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So that brings back the stars, but I don't want any of this image sitting over top of the ground, because I think Dr. Stacks here has the ground handled really, really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that originals layer, and we're going to add a layer mask with this icon right down here, this button right here. And as you can see, that put this big white square beside the image. Now that white square represents where on this image is visible. So how layer masks work is that anywhere that's white in this block is visible in here. So if I just take my paintbrush right here, and you can see we have black selected, and I just go right across the sky, you can see that erased a lot of that top layer. Now, we don't want to do that to the sky. We want to do that to the ground. We just want to get rid of all of that on the ground. So we're just going to mask that out. And you can see on our square here, that took care of that pretty good. So yeah, this is kind of coming together. We're almost there. Now, what I want to do is I want to bring out the colors in the sky a little bit more. You can already see that the colors are nice and smooth. We've got some blue and we've got some purple and we've got a little bit of orange down here. I want those colors to pop and kind of punch out a little better. So what we're going to do is we're going to add what's called an adjustment layer, and that's this little icon down here. You're going to click that, and you're going to go up to curves. We're going to add a curves adjustment layer. Now, the way adjustment layers work is that any layer below this adjustment layer is going to inherit the adjustments that we make in this layer. And now this is a curves adjustment right here. The way curves works is you have your dark pixels down here, or the dark side is what I like to call it. And then you have your light pixels up here, or the light side as I like to call it. And then you have your mid-tones in here, or your mace windows as I like to call them. So we're going to grab a point on this graph kind of closer to the dark pixels, and we're just going to drag it down. And as you can see, that kind of makes the photo a little bit darker, but it also makes those colors kind of come out and be a little more saturated. So we're just going to drag it down just a little bit, and then we're going to go up here kind of closer to the lighter pixels. We're going to make another point, and we're going to pull that up. So you can see just how much that brought out that color. So what we did here is we added something called contrast, where we made the darker pixels darker and the brighter pixels brighter. Now you could just add a contrast slider and do it like that. But what I really like about the curves adjustment is it lets you really get in there and be very specific at which pixels you want to edit. So what we're going to do now is again, you have a layer mask automatically applied to that layer, and as much as I like what it did to the sky, I don't really like what it did to the ground. It made the ground too colorful, too contrasty. We're losing some some of the image there in the dark places on the house there. So we're just going to take our brush, and with that layer mask selected, we're just going to erase the ground. And that looks a lot better. And we are essentially done. So usually I will crop this image in, just like so. And now you have a nice little image that you can show off to your family and be like, look what I did. And they'll be like, cool. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you had some fun. And if you followed along, you should show me what you made. All right. See you guys next time.